Start the recording. Hello students, welcome to lesson 31 of science in the high school, in the family school online. And today we are going to talk about gymnosperms. So these are all the pine trees, conifers and a few others, but they are mainly all the pine and the conifer trees. So this is a very, very important group of the family. All right. So let's see. And do I have any volunteers for teaching the academic principle today? Okay. All right, if I don't get any volunteers, then I guess I'll have to do it. That is not my preference, but I get the point. Okay. So let's start by showing here in our modern plant classification map. Okay. So we'll review the different types of plants that we have. All right, so we have the vascular, non-vascular plants. What is the difference again between vascular and non-vascular? What's the difference between vascular and non-vascular plants? Anyone on the question board, on the chat board, or on the microphone? Or you can raise your hand if you want. Okay. All right, Jens, let me unmute you. Oh, sorry, there you go, Jens, you can speak.
Vascular plants have roots and stems, and then the non-vascular don't have any roots or stems in the plant.
And besides root system, so they have roots and stems. Okay, that's good. That's right. And that is correct. Okay, so the non-vascular plants have rhizoids that are kind of like roots. They are an adaptive type of root. And then the stems are just directly onto the leaf, really. Okay, so they are kind of weird. Patrick here, it says that vascular has xylem and phloem. So remember that we were talking about the different tissues of plants, and Anna also says vascular plants have xylem and phloem. Yes, okay. And those are the tissues that allow the plant to transport water and sugars throughout the plant, okay? And Aubrey says vascular are bigger in size. That is correct. Vascular plants, because they can do this transport of water, they are able to grow bigger. So I have a question. In the non-vascular plants, we were looking at, you know, the mosses, liverworts, and so on. And then last week, we talked about the ferns and horsetails, okay? How do these plants, I mean the non-vascular, the non-vascular plants, the mosses, how then the mosses move water around? If they don't have xylem and phloem, how do they move the water and the sugars that they produce around? What do you think? They don't have these tubes. Anna says they kind of just absorb it from the area around them, right? Yes, that's correct. And that is one of the reasons why they are so small, because they cannot really transport the water. The water is necessary for all the functions. And so the water, the minerals, they just get absorbed directly and they get diffused through the plant. Do you remember how we talk about the principle of diffusion, okay, when something of higher concentration moves to a place of lower concentration. Okay, so that is kind of how the non-vascular plants move things around. And Aubrey says, so they move cell by cell. Yes, that's right. So through diffusion, the water, the minerals, the oxygen, the carbon dioxide, and the sugars, they just move through diffusion throughout the plant, from one cell to the other, but they don't have dedicated cells that actually move the things, these minerals and elements around, okay? So last time we were talking about the vascular plants, and then we were talking about the sporocytes, the plants that reproduce through spores, and we were looking at the ferns. Now, so we are going to look at the plants that have seeds, and of those plants that have seeds, we have two large groups, the angiosperms and the gymnosperms. Okay, so again, the word gymno means naked, okay, a naked seed, and the reason for that is because the seed is just not covered with a fruit or any fruiting type of apparatus, okay, and so the gymnosperms, which are all the conifers, pine trees, firs, and so on, they are these ones that are gymnosperms, okay? And let's see, in the lesson today, it says that the academic principle is that gymnosperms are vascular plants that do not make flowers. They do produce seeds, and their seeds are not enclosed in fruit, okay? So let's take a look at some of these plants. What do they look like? Okay, so here we have an example of a spruce tree, and these trees, the gymnosperms, are some of the most common organisms, okay, on the plant kingdom. So they are in many places, especially, okay, especially in colder places, not in tropical areas. Aubrey says those are everywhere in Colorado. Yes, okay, and here in Utah, in the mountains, they are also everywhere. So let's see if we have in the lesson, I think that they have kind of a little map showing, let's see, this one shows kind of the location of coniferous forests, all right? So they are mostly on the northern hemisphere. They certainly are in many more areas than what is shown in this map. They are also in South America, but in the areas where the weather turns colder, okay? So that is one of the things that conifers love. There's one type of conifer tree that likes tropical area, okay? And those are the Seacats, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Anna says, I have a blue spruce tree right outside my window. Excellent. And Aubrey says the blue spruce tree is the state tree in Colorado. Excellent. So that is this one. Which one is it? This one here. Okay. The spruce tree. All right. So very common. We have seen a lot of those. Okay, and here they have one side where it shows some of the differences between fir trees, spruce and pine trees, all right, and it gives you some information on how to tell them apart. I am not very good at that, okay, but there are some differences. Some of the things that all these trees have in common, though, is that they all reproduce by cones. Okay, so let's see some of the videos here. Okay, so these are let's three. Okay, and it explains that they have seeds, but they are not covered by fruit. The gymnosperms, especially the conifers, we have 500 different species. So, you know, it is a good number, but not a very, very large number. Okay, so the first division, the Seacats. The ginkgo biloba tree is also a conifer tree, but this one is very different because the leaves are round. They are not like the conifers that are spiky leaves. So this is also a gymnosperm. It does not flower, but it looks kind of like a flowering tree. And this whole division, okay, of plants has only one species. That species, the ginkgo biloba. Okay, the Seacats have several different species. They look like palm trees, but usually are smaller. And the main differentiating feature is that they produce cones. Okay, they don't have a flower. Here we have another view of the ginkgo biloba tree. All right, see, it looks kind of like aspen, right? But the aspens produce flowers. These ones do not produce flowers. All right, so, and then let's see, we are going to then go into the more common ones, the conifers. These are the redwood trees, and the redwood trees are also part of the conifer flower family. And some of the largest, tallest living organisms are these redwood trees that are gymnosperms. One of the characteristics of the conifers is that the leaves are adapted here, okay, to cold weather. So they have a waterproof cuticle, okay, that allows them to be waterproof, so they can be covered with snow and still not die. Also, the conifers don't shed their leaves. They remain green year-round. Okay. Samuel says redwood trees are very beautiful. I imagine. I've never been able to go to the redwood forest in California. Okay. If any of you have and you want to tell about that, that would be great. Raise your hand or let me know. Okay. So, but this is also a very important characteristic, is that they are the redwood trees. The redwood trees forest, Anna is asking which trees? If you've seen the redwood trees forest in California, that is in the West Coast, is the main area where those are located. Okay. So Aubrey, you have been there. Do you want to tell us about your experience, your encounter with the redwood trees? What do you remember of that? Aubrey or Connor, I imagine. So as I was explaining, they have, you should do it over the mic. Okay, so let me unmute you. There you go. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay, so it was like a couple years back. It was when I was like 10. So what I do remember is that they just are like really red. Like they're really pretty red, and they're absolutely huge.
Oh, sorry.
And
sorry. There we go.
that's what they look like. And we got to drive through one that was like had like a hole in it, and you're supposed to drive through it.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were just really massive, and we went to one place and they had it as like a beam over in like a
Yeah.
restaurant.
Uh-huh.
And it was just so interesting just to see how huge they were. Like,
Yes.
it just made you feel so small. But yeah, it was very cool. So
These are the tallest living organisms in the world, these redwood trees. Amazing. Sorry about the audio. So you said that there was one where you could drive through the trunk of the tree?
yes, it was like I don't know how to explain it. It was something that a lot of tourists like to do. It's like, the thing to do when you go there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like a tree, and you just drive right through it, and it's kind of like a staple there, and it was very cool to drive through it. And it was just kind of like, whoa, and like it's just, and they had huge roots, at the bottom, that popped up. And
And the tree was still alive, even though
yes,
it had a tunnel through the trunk. Okay.
yes, it was still,
Amazing. So yeah, beautiful plants, really amazing. Okay.
they are.
Another thing that I learned here was that these trees, one of the reasons why they remain green throughout the year is because they actually produce a type of antifreeze in the sap of the tree. Okay, so the water is able to continue running through the plant during the cold winter. Okay, and it doesn't freeze over. So if you have seen pine trees during the winter, you've noticed that they remain flexible. Okay, where other trees are brittle. Okay, the pine trees remain flexible because the water still flows through them because they have this type of antifreeze. Really amazing. Okay, that they would be able to do that. An antifreeze is basically a chemical that lowers the freezing point of something, So that is all that the antifreeze kind of does. All right. Then the video explains and shows here in the pine how the pine cones are of two different types. Sorry. Okay. So the pine cones are of two different types. They are the male pine cones and the female cones. All right. And the male pine cones are the ones that produce the pollen grains, and they are blown really through the air, and they land on the female cones that have the process then of fertilizing the eggs and produce a seed. Okay. So here we see the female cones are usually on the top, and the male cones that are kind of fuzzy, they are kind of brittle. You can, you touch them, okay, with your hand and they separate. Okay, they produce the pollen, and this is an image of a pollen grain. It kind of has like little wings that allows the pollen grain to fly through the air. And actually they are so light, these pollen grains, that they float through the air up and down, okay, from tree to tree and everything. And then when they land on the female cones, they get inside in order to fertilize the eggs. Okay, so here we have these female pine cones. Okay, then the rest of the video shows the animation of how the sperm in the pollen grain travels through the cone in order to fertilize the female egg and produce a seed. Okay. Once the seed is fertilized, it actually, yeah, the female cones are the hard ones. Okay. They are the woody ones. So normally, whenever you think of cones, we normally actually think of the female cones. But there are also the male cones that look more fuzzy, okay? So I'm going to ask you for one of the assignments. Probably I'm going to modify the assignment and ask you to find a pine tree near you and try to collect and take pictures of both the female cones and the male cones. This would be a good time of the year. This shows the seed, and the seed, the embryo with the seed is in this part of the seed, and then usually the gymnosperms seeds have like a wing that also allows them to drop and be dispersed through the air. Okay. So that is this video on that. Then we have here another very interesting video showing the animation. These videos have been wonderful in showing the great animations on the fertilization process. Now here you see some of the large forests of pines. Here you see an example of the male pine cones, okay, and you see how small they are, very, very small, and they produce the pollen inside them. And you see there the pollen flying off with the wind. Okay, so those are the pollen grains, very, very small. Chas says we don't have a pine, okay, where I lived. Okay, well, try to find, you know, there are different types of things. So the video goes on into explaining how the process goes, the male pine cone, how it produces the male sperm and so on. I'm not going to go through the whole video. I'm going to actually let you watch it, and then we'll ask some questions in the quiz about the video. Okay, so I'm going to let you do that. Okay. But very, very amazing and interesting process of the reproduction of these trees. And like I said before, here is a Seacat, and you see how it looks like a palm tree, but it produces these large cones, again the male and the female cones that are used for reproduction. And the seeds are inside the female cones. Yeah, they are, it's interesting to see that these are also gymnosperms. They are very large. And you see the article here on the Seacats. Okay, so you can read more about these trees and how they reproduce. Here you see the cone very well, very good. Oops, I guess that we need to do smaller. Okay, there we go. So here you see the cone. And it is interesting to notice, one of the things that is very interesting is that these conifers, the process of reproduction takes 2 years or more. Okay, so from the time that the pollen is released from the male cone until the time that the seed is fertilized and is released from the female cone, it takes about 2 years to do that. Okay, so really a long process. And one of the things that is very different here in the gymnosperms from the other plants that we have studied is the following. Do you remember when we were talking about the mosses and the ferns, the reproduction, that it was very important, what was necessary, what was very, very important to have for the sperm to fertilize the egg? Okay, what was the means of transportation of the sperm? Samuel says water. Excellent. Yes. So these plants need a lot of water in order to fertilize. The conifers, on the contrary, they don't need water. They are able to do the fertilization process by dispersing the pollen through the air, and the seed is actually pretty dry. Okay, so like we were seeing in the video, you know, here, that the seed is pretty dry, so it doesn't have like a fruit like the angiosperms that have you know, fleshy fruits. The gymnosperms are very dry, so water, they are able to reproduce in places with less water. Okay, that is also an important characteristic of the conifers and the gymnosperms. Okay, let's see, let's see this one. Oh, this is the link to this video of the redwood, and they are really the tallest trees. So very interesting family of trees. Now the gymnosperms, especially the conifers, are very important for economic reasons. Okay. What is one of the reasons why you think that the conifers are economically important? What do you think? Anna says Christmas trees? Yes, okay, so we use them for Christmas trees. Okay, so all the Christmas trees are conifers traditionally. But what else? What else are very important? Spencer says oxygen. Yes, so they are used for oxygen. Samuel and Jens say firewood. That's correct. So they are some of the most important sources of wood, okay? And wood is used to build furniture, all right? Jens says to build furniture. And it's also used for construction, so a lot of construction, all the framing of homes, especially here in the United States, is done with pine wood. Okay, so all that is harvested in order to either build furnitures, okay, or to build structures, all right. Patrick says the pines make good fire starters when dry. Yes, so they really are very good for that, and also they have the sap in them, okay, that make them good for starting. I was actually reading that redwood, the wood of redwood trees actually has a fire retardant. Okay, so the redwood fire, the redwood in the redwood trees actually doesn't burn very well. Okay, and in San Francisco in 1906 there was a huge fire that started, I think that it was caused, the starting of the fire was caused by an earthquake that started a fire going throughout the city of San Francisco, and the firefighters said that because a lot of the homes were built with redwood trees, then the fire was able to be contained a lot faster. If it would have been all done just with pines, they would have burned down a lot more. So that is one of the other characteristics. Also, I read that these large conifer forests especially in the northern hemisphere are one of the largest carbon sinks in the world. Okay, so these trees, because they live a very long time and they produce so much wood, they are very tall and large and so on, they absorb a lot of carbon from the atmosphere. So they process and store a lot of carbon. Okay, so they really are helpful for that also. There is one other very important use of these trees that we haven't talked about. What would that be? What is another thing that we use conifer trees a lot for? What do you think? What do we use wood for? We mentioned fire, we mentioned construction. Samuel says paper. Anna also says paper. That is correct. Yes. So the paper all comes from the cellulose that is produced by these pine trees. Okay. So a very, very important part of the value of the conifers is in the paper manufacturing. Okay. And so the pulp of the wood is separated, the strains of cellulose are separated, and then they are rearranged and pressed together into paper. Okay, so without these trees we wouldn't have much paper. Okay. Aubrey sends me here a link to the drive-through tree. Let me see if I can copy and do that. Right, let's go over here. Okay. Right, okay, so here you have the chandelier tree. Wow, an amazingly large tree. Okay. That is the tunnel tree. Is that the one that you drove through? Is that the same one? Yes. Okay. Excellent. Beautiful. Must have been an interesting experience, really. And Sydney says that her friends have been there also. Yeah, very famous, a very famous tree, really. Okay. So those are the gymnosperms. We talk about the usage of them, why are they important, why we need to manage them, and how they reproduce. Okay. So are there any questions on that? If not, we are going to have Patrick unmute himself. Okay, let me unmute Patrick there. And he's going to take us over the gospel principle. Okay. Go ahead.
I'm assuming you can hear me. So
yes.
So as we talked about evergreens, we can also be constant and quote unquote not change our color, as we quote unquote stand witness of God at all times and in all things and in all places. This already reminds me a lot of missionary work, and how we can invite all to come into Christ. And then most gymnosperms stay in green all year long. I know up here in Wisconsin, although their leaves we they fall down to the ground. But of course, the trees that don't are the gymnosperms, the pine trees mostly. They're actually great for the winter because you can lure people underneath them and pull the branches down. Get snow on them.
Mm-hmm.
But so just like the gymnosperms don't change color, we should not be changing our color either. But also, it's really easy to spot them when fall and winter happens, and the leaves and plants change color and fall to the ground. The evergreens stand out because they don't change,
Mm-hmm.
like kind of like God's word. They don't change like most people do.
Yes.
And Alma, he's a pretty famous prophet, I'd say. He was a priest of the wicked Noah, the King Noah. You know, he's not the guy who built the ark. And Alma later became a prophet. When he heard the prophet Abinadi teach the gospel of Jesus Christ, he believed it, and Alma began to teach others the truths that he had come to know. Many of the people he taught believed his words. He invited all who believed and wanted to be called of God's people to be baptized. And he taught that when we are baptized, we are witnessing or showing that we are willing to stand as a witness of God at all times and in all things and all places, that they may be in, even unto death. Mosiah 18:9. So, what I think it means is to keep the promise of standing as a witness of God at all times and in all things and in all places is to believe what you say and say what you mean and mean what you say. Like, let's see here. There are a lot of people. One example, I know some people might get offended. Some used car salesmen, you know, they're always like, yeah, this is a great model. Let's use this. But nope. It breaks down the next week. So I feel it's important to say what you mean and mean what you say, and stay true to the things that you do.
Mm-hmm.
See here. So as it says here, it says it means we promise to share our testimonies of where we have seen God's hand, and help our lives with others. We do it with our words and actions, no matter what time of day it is, what we are doing, or where we are. So you notice the word all things, all places, and all times? So I guess being a witness of God is similar to being an evergreen tree. By it never changes. You should never be changing. Like how you view God, it should always stay rock solid where it is. And let's see here. This is a story of a young girl who was like an evergreen tree, and her name is Anya. I'm gonna say it like that. Anya lives in Russia. She was only 14 years old, and she began to be taught the gospel by the missionaries. One day in her school class, the teacher was saying false things about the church and about the Book of Mormon. There were no Latter-day Saints in the school to defend it, but Anya, who was not even a member, only investigator of the church, knew that the teacher was saying was wrong. She stood up in front of the whole class and defended the Book of Mormon in the church. What courage! She told them that what they were saying was not true, and that she knew the Book of Mormon was true, and if anyone wanted to know more about the truth themselves, she invited them to read it like she had done. Anya went home and told the missionaries she was ready to be baptized. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So,
have you ever had an experience like that?
Yeah, back when I was in public school. Gosh. You know, the stereotypes that go around about Mormons are the magic underwear, the multiple wives, the coffee, and, yeah, there's a couple other ones too. But, it's kind of hard being a Mormon where there's so little Mormon activity in your area, and everyone else you know is like not a Mormon, and they're always, you know, getting the wrong idea about you. Yep. So it is kind of hard to defend it, but I've definitely had to do that before.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And so standing as a witness of God is something we promise to do all day long, whatever we are. It is not something we just do on Sundays or only when we're at home. We do not take breaks from vacations for standing as a witness of God. Oh, someone who's been an example to me, standing in all times and all places, I don't know. I'd probably have to say definitely the prophet.
Mm-hmm.
And say the missionaries too. We had an awesome pair of missionaries come by a couple of years ago. One of them was from Germany, and the other one was from I think it was Idaho maybe.
Uh-huh.
And they were awesome. The name was Elder Bishop and Elder Laban, and yeah,
Mm-hmm.
they were pretty great. They definitely stood true. I think that's everything I have to say.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Patrick, very, very much. I really appreciate that. Okay, I want to tell you kind of a little personal experience on this regard. Okay, so when I was in Argentina growing up, I was the only member of the church in my high school. Okay, and I had a lot of friends, a lot of good friends, and in my junior high school years, we were able to do a lot of things together, okay? But one of the problems that I saw was that as we were growing older, they were changing when I was kind of staying the same, all right? So my standards of conduct and the things that I try to do remain the same, but they were changing, okay? And so over time, there were fewer and fewer things that we could share, okay? I don't know if you can relate to that. And so the interesting thing was that as I was growing older, I was able to become closer friends with my few friends from church because we could still share good things together. And I was, not that we were not friends anymore. I was still friends with the other guys, but there were less things that I could share with them. Okay. And so that when I was studying this lesson, about the evergreens not changing, that is kind of one of the things that it made me think of, okay, of that, of not changing. Mm-hmm. Have you had an experience like that?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
I can definitely relate to that. I noticed that, I went to grade school with these kids, and as I, got older, it just sort of, you know, gap grew,
Yes, uh-huh,
It wasn't the
yeah.
same.
It wasn't the same. You have to actually decide what is it that I'm going to share and to do, what am I willing to do and what I'm not willing to do. Then it becomes kind of
You have to sort of,
different. Mm-hmm.
you have to set these standards ahead of time, because if you try to set one beforehand, you're not going to end up setting the right one.
Excellent. That
You
is a
have to,
very,
you
very
have it ready.
important thing, Patrick. Yes. Uh-huh. You have to set the standards beforehand in order to not have to decide afterwards those things.
Hmm.
Okay. Good. Good. Okay. So I was able now to get the webcam kind of going with the microscope. Okay, so sadly I won't be able to record this on the video. Okay, but let me show you just a few things that I've collected and see. Can you see that okay on the webcam? So this is a seed, okay, this is the seed. This is, if you see the flying part of the seed, okay, the seed kind of goes around this area, and then this is kind of a wing that propels the seed through the air, okay. Let me try to show you where I got the seed from, okay, and let's see if we can manage this appropriately. So right, and see the focus on the thing. So I have a pine cone, okay, you can see the pine cone there, all right, and then you can fish from inside the pine cone. Let me see if I can get that in the microscope image. Okay, it's kind of weird to drive this around. Okay, here I see the thing. Let's focus that. All right, and I'm going to extract that, the seed, from the middle, from the inside. And oh, see if I can pull it out. So the seed doesn't fall until the pine cone is totally dry and opens up, and then the seed falls out, okay. So this one is still there. We go. So here I grab the seed, okay, from the pine cone. All right. Oh, it's hard to keep in focus. But you see how this is really what it means by saying that it's a gymnosperm, okay, because there's not a fruiting body around the seed. There's no fruit surrounding the seed, okay. Sydney says, when I was little, those were airplane seeds and I would throw them in the air. Yeah. So these are from a pine tree. All right, I just went outside my office. Let me see if I can focus this more, you know, out. All right. Oh, and it's just a cone, okay, of a pine that I found outside. All right, so a regular pine cone, okay, and it's already quite open, this one, but still I could find some of the seeds inside it. All right. So they are from a pine tree. Let me show you the male cone. Now we are going to kind of zoom in and see the male cone, how it looks like. Okay, that's it. There we go. And so here we have a very, very small, this is the immature male cone. Okay. And then this is the larger one, still part of the male cone, growing larger, but that disperses the sperm. I have here another example of that. And so let me see if I can zoom out a little bit and focus this. Okay. So there you have the male cone, fascie, and the sperm is inside. And this one, see here, there's one side that is kind of still greenish, so maturing, and the other side is drier. Okay, and the sperms are released when it is drier. The thing opens up, the cone, the male cone opens up and releases the sperm. Here we see a little bit of the remains of one of those. okay? And they are very brittle. I can just press it and they break up. And I believe that these little ones are the spores, okay, the male. Okay, let me see if I can put one in focus. All right, let's see if we can focus that. There we go. Very, very small. Do you see that? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So very, very tiny, really. So these squares are 5 millimeters squares, okay, that you see in the grid. So this is very, very tiny. Okay. So yeah, very small, and that is why they are so small. And I don't know that this is actually the pollen grain, okay, all right, or is part of the male pine cone, and then the pollen is actually even smaller than that. But they are literally so small that they are driven by the wind and they can float in the air for a long time. Okay, so I hope that you are able to go and find a cone. Okay, let me switch to the webcam here. Let's see. Let me see, disconnect this and I'll show you the pine cone directly. Okay, there we go. So let me see. Okay, so here we see the pine cone, and these are where the seeds are. Let me show you again. You see there on the opening, you can put the pincers and try to extract the seed. So this is the flying part of the seed. The seed is still kind of trapped inside there. So let me try another one. See if I can take the whole thing out. Oops, it breaks kind of easily. But the seed is still inside it. I was able to take some of the other seeds. Let's try over on the top. Okay. Let's see. Oh, there we go. These are, I got a good one there. You see? That's the fertilized seed. Okay. Good deal. Excellent. Well, I hope that you have enjoyed here our lesson on the gymnosperms and how they work. Okay, so that is for today, and let's finish with a prayer. Okay. So let's see who is going to do the prayer. Aubrey, would you like to say the prayer for us?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you that you're able to come to class today and be able to learn some things. And please bless us able to take this and apply it to our lives, be able to understand it more. We're so grateful for the teacher and his preparation, and we give you thanks in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. All right, let me stop the recording. Okay, and we are going to have now a